Hello and welcome to Unshakable with Human Design, everybody. I'm your host, Nicole Leno, and I'm here with my lovely, talented, and beautiful friend, Christina Luna. Hello, love.
Hello, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Oh my goodness. I love that you are our first episode of the year, that this is how we kick off the entire new year with just the two of us. This is actually going to air though on New Year's Eve.
Oh,
So this will be
wonderful.
New Year. So this is like, we get to ring in the new year with everybody. We get to like, hopefully you're listening to this on like one of the first days of the year. But wow, I am 2025, particularly from September to December, the blink of an eye to me.
Yeah, okay. So this is exactly how I've been describing the feeling of this. You know, when you're moving up a staircase, how you put a foot up on the stair and then
Mhm.
you have to shift your weight from the back foot to the top foot. And I think that the whole year we shifted our weight, and then September through December, we lifted the back foot and like we lifted the back foot and it just got to the second, it got to the upper step. And energetically, there's like a moment of instability when you're moving one foot from a place that was stable to the next space. But I feel like we all moved through that however we needed to. And now we've got both feet on the new step.
Yeah, and what's been interesting for me is it's almost like it feels like a workout, like where when I'm done with a workout, I feel accomplished, I feel good. Um, but I feel like I know I worked, like I know that like things happened that, my body worked, that I got my energy up and going, and I feel like that adrenaline pumping. And I feel like that's what this year felt like. I had the best year. Like business wise, we had our best year. My family and I had like a wonderfully, like it was a really good year. And I know a lot, but there was also a lot of challenge and and a lot of heavy energy and a lot of like, I guess difficulty is the word. Although I don't know if I'd categorize it as like, oh, this felt hard. I know it did for a lot of people. I'm hearing that from like, this was hard. I can't wait for this year to be over. And I don't feel that way necessarily. I feel like I almost feel like it's like a workout. It's like, yeah, it was a challenge. It was difficult, but I'm stronger. And that feels really good. How are you feeling about 2025 and the quickening energy and all of the things that we experienced in this, challenging year of the snake?
For me, it was a year, for anyone who has an aura ring, when the aura ring deciphers that your readiness level is above average, so it puts
Yes.
your activity number higher to
Yep.
challenge you. It was kind of like that for me. Like I experienced really a lot of foundational things coming into balance. Like in the beginning of the year, I had about $45,000 worth of debt. And as I'm closing the year, I have only my truck payment, which is less than 5 grand. So
Wow.
I will be paying that off. So I've been operating only on cash, got all of my debt cleared. I moved from a like very expensive place to a very affordable place. I've been living a more austere life, and all of that nervous system regulation has allowed me to go into really deep emotional archives that when I was in a higher state of productivity, I didn't have the bandwidth to go into those spaces really. And
Mm.
so I mostly around the summer months, I went into like really deep, um, kind of sexual trauma stuff, like deeper unconscious things around intimacy that I just didn't really have the bandwidth to explore when I was in a less regulated state. And so I spent a lot of time receiving massage and like remapping my entire nervous system because I'm in a more regulated state. I have the capacity to do that rewiring now. So it was kind of like less immediate situations, more really subterranean healing, more subterranean yeah, recalibration, I guess. And as the year is ending, I feel like I've been given a brand new body. You always
Yeah.
hear people tell you that your skin cells regenerate after so many days and your bones regenerate after a year and your muscles. I feel like I took the last year to grow a whole new body with a new nervous system, with a new financial stability, with a new emotional, relational connection. And now I'm born. I'm all new. And I feel like I'm prepared. I've got a very high um, readiness level,
Yeah.
thriving sleep, thriving biology. And I feel like now, what will I do when everything's new? And that's what 2026 feels like to me. I feel like it's a fresh palette, a fresh canvas,
Mm.
all new art supplies, all new, just everything at my disposal to play with. And so my approach is open, excited, curious,
Mm.
ready.
I feel that too. I feel like, and it's been December was good for me overall as a month. Like we traveled in the beginning of the month, which was amazing. But then it was almost like I had a fuller calendar than I like, which left me with normally December I keep super light and I I really go like cocooning and really like release and shed. And I've still been doing that. I have felt like just what you were talking about before about, sometimes when you're in a higher state of productivity that you can't you don't have the space to really, indulge yourself in this deeper work, in the shedding, it's almost like your brain can't go deeper because it's got too many top of mind, like it's like you have too many tabs open on your computer. So there's no rest happening. There's no deeper work happening. There's no cleansing happening. And that has been a challenge for me, which is part of the reason the last week of the year I said to my team, I'm like, we're taking off. There's not like we're not doing anything. I don't want to meet. We're not going to be answering questions. We're just not doing it. And I think that that's necessary. I think that that's not an optional part. I love that you did that all year. And I felt like I'm in a good cadence with doing that in general, of making sure that there are days where I don't push myself to be productive. It's a day for me to do what feels right for me. And sometimes that's just really digging into my stuff. And I took a lot of those days this year, but I did end up with that's something I'm looking at. Even though I know 2026 is going to be a fast year, I can feel that. I can feel, and I want to talk about that too, because we were chatting before we started about, this year is going to be, air and fire. And I feel that already. Like I feel the pull of that speed and initiation energy and imagination and all of that. Like I feel all of that being pulled toward it. And, you know, so now I'm thinking about how I can create more space so that that can feel good and not feel crazy. But would you like to talk a little bit about that, or are we not there yet?
Yeah, I do. I've been doing a lot of readings for the first quarter. I've almost
Yeah.
completed all my first quarter readings, and there was different stories for everyone, like there always is, but there were these themes that hit every single time. And the general like archetypal themes are in January, we get to finish the final shedding. It's like the
Mm,
final exfoliation. It's like taking the old fingernail polish off your nails. That we have all of these planets that are kind of revisiting the old guard. They're all kind of looking at them all. We'll go into details about that. But after January, we get to stand in the light of the new energy. And the way I perceive it is, do you know, for anyone who's ever experienced watching a birth or being a part of a birth of a child,
mm,
there's a period of time where you're dreaming of your child. You're thinking about what it will feel like to hold your child or to see your child. What kind of parent are you going to be? How will this change you? And so it's all imagining and dreaming. And the imagining and dreaming is a really important part of the process. But all of that evaporates immediately as soon as you're holding the child. As soon as that baby is being held and you see the child, the imagination of what that child would look like is done because no more imagining. And so I think what this quarter is preparing us for is that experience of really holding a dream that we've been thinking about, incubating, imagining, preparing ourselves for I believe for soul lifetimes, but especially since 2012. There's something about since 2012, there was this idealized fantasy that we incubated, and now we get to actually hold it. And I think it will be a lot more simple, less grandiose than we imagined it to be. It'll be far more present, far more primal, far more experiential, a lot less mental. Even though we're talking about moving from feminine energies of water and earth to masculine energies of fire and air, there's something immediate and tangible about masculine energy that I think we all get to experience. And that's what we're preparing for in January. What can we do to make ourselves completely physically available to receive the tangible experience that we've been incubating?
I feel like I feel that coming. I think you just put words to like what I was feeling about like needing to clear these things. Like there is a swimming in ideas and thoughts and all of this stuff of like what could it be? And there will come a time where it's like it's just going to be. It's just going to be what it is. So I
Mhm.
think that you beautifully, as always, put that into words, what I was thinking and feeling. Because people ask me all the time, they're like, can you feel a transit before it comes? And I do think that we feel where energy is moving. Like I certainly experience that. Do you?
Well, yeah, I think that part of our mind and our ability to have long time perception is to perceive around corners to prepare our nervous system
Mm,
for what is around the corner. Empathic people do this all the time. People who are energetically sensitive, we can feel around the corner so that we prepare our nervous system in advance for what we'll encounter around the corner.
yeah.
And so I know that a lot of times, intuition and attraction to models of being like astrology or human design, it actually came from a sensitive person who was blindsided often and needed to create coping strategies so that their nervous system wasn't blindsided and surprised by the overwhelming energetic experience. So we learned anticipation modalities so
Mm,
that we can prepare our nervous system. And I recently got that feedback from a client. She was like, oh my gosh, somehow having the reading and knowing where the energy is going, like with podcasts like this, it prepares our nervous system so that as that transition takes place, we are not so surprised. We're in anticipation because the truth is, if we're not, when we create something that's never been created in our businesses, in our lives, in our households, it doesn't always represent the same way that a pregnancy represents. When a mother's holding a baby in her belly, she's got a literal person and a bulge in her body that is helping her to anticipate what's about to happen.
yeah.
When we're businesses and we're, operating households, it doesn't appear the same way as a bulge in the belly.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
how do we measure that something's about to happen? Something's about to be born. And the imagining of it is almost over because it's about to materialize. And so, yeah.
I think that's an interesting thing for everybody to check in on. Are you feeling that right now? Because I think that that's sort of you likening it to a pregnancy. It's sort of like in those days where, you're in the last weeks of your pregnancy, if you've ever been pregnant or if you've known somebody who is, where it's like the countdown begins, but nobody knows when it's going to happen. Nobody knows exactly unless you have a scheduled birth, which, fine if you have that, but you know, a little boring from the anticipation side of things, where you're just, I remember feeling that, my son came early. So it was like, oh, here we are. But that anticipation that you're living in of like, is it today? Is it today? Is it today? I feel like we're kind of in that now. So that's something for you to check in with. If you're listening to this, are you feeling that anticipation? And can you have fun with it? Can you lean into it and just play rather than worry about perfectly planning for the unplannable potentially?
Yeah, and there's actually a shortcut to understanding and anticipating what part of our lives this new development is taking place. We can actually, for people who know their natal charts, you can look at the area of their life where Aries is.
Mm.
There's actually quite a bit of healing going on in January, specifically through from the 11th to the 17th. There's a lot of aspects to Chiron during that week. So whatever's cropping up to be healed, and you'll know that it's a healing moment if you feel like you have only two choices. You have this choice or this choice, and the town's not big enough for both of them. So one of them's got to go. Whenever we get that kind of energy, we always know there's a healing that can include a third option that we need to create to hold both sides of the equation. But that thing is the Aries part of your life. And the
Mm.
Aries part of our life is going to be the place where we're experiencing something brand new that we've been incubating for a long time. And the other piece of this that's very important is to know that there's an opposite side of Aries. So look at the Aries part of your chart and look at the Libra part of your chart. And the Libra part of your chart is where a lot of the fruit will show up. The Aries
Mm.
is going to be where all the nourishment and the roots and all the work has gone in. The Libra part is going to be where it all blooms and fruits. Like, for instance, I talked a lot about my body and my nervous system. I happen to have Aries down in my fourth house.
Mm.
And my fourth house is my home, my body, my nourishment, my deep archives, my origin story. So I imagine there's going to be a birthing in that part of my life that will fuel the flowering in my Libra parts, which are my 10th house of mission, purpose, and legacy. So that's what I'm anticipating, actually seeing the representation of all the subterranean work I've done. But
Yeah.
anyone who can know their natal chart can look at these two sectors and determine where the deep work is finally sprouting and
Hmm.
what part of their life all the sprouting will nourish.
Right. So, and you answered the question that I was going to ask you for the audience, which, so for them, they're going to look at what house is Aries in. Because I think some people think like, oh, well, I don't have any planets in Aries, or I don't have this, but it's the house that we're looking at, which is how we all get the entire zodiac, is that
Yes.
we all have the whole thing. You're just going to have, and most people have a concentration in certain areas. I mean, every chart, I love looking at charts because I think it's always so interesting to see how they balance out. But, I don't have a lot of planets or anything over in Aries, but it's in my seventh house. And,
Oh, interesting.
so that's relationships and
Yeah, so you've been doing a lot of work on thinking about your relationship to the people that you interact with. This is going to be your relationship to your clients, friends, social network. It's the seventh house is how we develop our trust for other people, our trust for co-creation and collaboration. And so you've been building your resource and you're going to have a dawning when it comes to relating to who in the world you trust and how they trust you. And what will happen is you'll get a nourishment and a blooming of a whole new identity in your first house. So your identity is about to completely expand and flower. And what's interesting about that is I know a little bit about what you're transforming in your professional life. And so you can expect to imagine a whole new way of identifying with yourself. And when things are blooming in the first house, it actually affects every single house because identity is one of the strongest drivers of values and beliefs and movement And so once your identity blooms, you'll be moving completely differently in the world.
Yeah. That's something that, I think it's also these themes come up in our in our energy, and they end up coming out our mouths and coming, into our work and things. I've been very focused on identity and on, what is this? I feel a shift in that space. So that's very comforting to hear and interesting.
Yes.
And I'm excited to listen to my quarterly reading that you did for me. I
Yeah.
haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. But so for everybody at home, they're looking for where is Aries in their chart, and then they're looking at where is Libra in their chart. So where is it opposite? So you can see that polarity of where the work is being done and where the fruit is going to come from that labor. But let's get into January in because there's so much. You and I talked briefly before we hit record, and we saw the same things, which of course we're looking at the same stuff just in different ways, but we both highlighted and kind of honed in on the same stuff, which is that we have some energies that are pretty much marching lockstep together throughout the whole month, which is, always an interesting phenomenon. And these ones are not necessarily always that far apart, but they're pretty much like arm in arm, marching together. So what's your first set of dates that you're kind of focusing on or looking at as interesting?
Well, in the first 3 days of
Mm-hmm.
January, we've got Chiron moving direct, and we're going to have a strong Chiron story in January. So, the intuitive directive I received from paying attention to this is pay attention to when you're following inner authority and when you're following outer authority. And the extra consciousness we bring to this will actually serve us as we fine tune ourselves through the week. And there's a lot of planning that I think will begin as all the planets enter Capricorn in the second week of January. We've got conjunctions with Mars and the Sun. We've got conjunctions with Venus and Mars. We've got conjunctions with the Sun and Venus, all in Capricorn, through from the 4th to the 10th. And then the 10th gives us these oppositions to Jupiter. And so there's going to be this um, planning, knowing whether we're using our inner authority to plan that or our outer authority. And we're also going to be noticing if we're planning from fear or from faith.
Mm-hmm.
And none of these are wrong or bad. It's just an increase of our consciousness. It's an increase of our observation of what we're coming from. And I think that we can learn a lot about ourselves by observing fear and faith, which both of them can be valued the same. Faith stretches us, and fear makes sure that we honor the vulnerability of our human experience. There's not anything wrong with fear. There's a comfort in knowing that we don't have to stress our nervous system with our plans. We don't have to throw ourselves into the, blaring cold in order to feel something or to grow. There's an honoring of the vulnerable with Jupiter in Cancer, and there's a responsible planning with faith. And so that's what I see for the first 2 weeks. And then we get into that third week, and I want to hear what you have to say about those first 2 weeks before we go into that.
Yeah, it's the same things, just in, I'll have my own like interpretation and twist on this. So, same thing with those first 3 days. From a human design standpoint, we enter into the year in the 38th gate. But what makes this year different is the fact that Venus and Mars are also in the 38th gate, that we also have, that it's that conjunct that we're talking about. We're just looking at it from the human design standpoint. It's this one very specific theme of the 38th gate, which sits in the root center, which is basically, it's called the gate of the fighter. And what I think is interesting about this, because some people get turned off by this gate, oh, the gate of the fighter. My kid has the gate of the fighter, and he's such a fighter. And it's like, no, not really. It can be, but I think dangerous to label people with that, or even label these energies like that. Everything has its light and dark. And the light of this is to fight for your purpose. That's really what this is about. And when you say faith and your inner authority, your purpose doesn't come from an outside, external, this is what your purpose is. It doesn't come from a human design reading. It doesn't come from, what's going to get you clicks online. It is a deep rooted sense of direction of my soul, of where I'm supposed to go and what I'm supposed to do. And because it sits in the root, this isn't an identity thing necessarily. This is the fuel for your purpose. This is like, it's like the gunshot that's setting you off. Like I get the image of like when like the Olympics, when they're all lined up at the line and then the gun goes off and they dive into the water off of the springboards in the pool, or they're off and they get that first jump. That's sort of what this feels like for me. And we're getting it, with Mars in the 38th gate as well. We're just getting that. I think there's going to be that extra boost of action where we may not need to work so hard for it, where that energy is just going to show up for us, both in the sun and in, these other spaces of like, let's go. It's an energy of let's go. But I think you do have to have an inner sense of what you're doing it for, because the shadow of this and the shadow of this channel, when you have the whole channel, is a sense of purposelessness. The light is, I know what I'm here for, and it's worth fighting for. My purpose in this life that I can have is worth the fight. It's worth the work. It's worth the late nights. It's worth it if it fuels your soul. It's not for some outward, it's not ego. It's not from that. It's from a sense of purpose of like, this is what I'm here for. And it feels so good to be living it. And I think that that's like, we're getting a little taste of that right at the start of the year. And then we move from there, we move into the 54th gate, where we do the exact same thing. Sun, Venus, Mars sitting in the 54th gate with, like you said, with Jupiter opposing that. And so we get the Earth and Jupiter in the 53rd gate. And 54 is ambition. It's again more root center type of energy, where we have that. It's the fuel for. It's a funny gate because we hear ambition and it is about growth and it is about moving towards something, but it's not about going alone. There's something about galvanizing support. There's something about, what's good for me is good for you, and really meaning that and not having that be empty words. It's like growth together, where we say, the analogy I always give for this, or the example that I give, is like Tom's shoes. Buy a pair, give a pair, that kind of thing, donate a pair. Like that's sort of like the energy of this, is that type of ambition. Like this is good for all of us. Again, it's almost connected to that. It's right next to that purpose gate of saying like, I have a purpose. This one says we have a purpose.
Whew, I love it. I'm so dialed into everything you said. Okay, so what I love about the Chiron squares that we experience from the 11th through the 16th, there's going to be several of them. And it's such a concentration of the same energy that we don't even need to it's just every day that week, right? But Chiron is a wound that is healing in Aries. So we're cultivating medicine through our life experiences that are fueling the Aries part of ourselves. And the Aries part of ourselves is I am, and I'm worthy because I am. What is good for me is that I am, and I'm worthy of being I am. And when I do that, I also give that to you. You are worthy because you are. Whenever the healing happens inside of ourselves, we suddenly see the worthiness in others as well. True medicine is a mirror. And so when we're walking that week with the medicine that's healing in the I am, We are feeling it in our heart. We're feeling it in our mind. We're feeling it in our consciousness. Every single day that week, we're going to be noticing that if our instincts and our human desire and our human, what's right for our human is right for us, the authentic experience and knowing of that, then we have to know that the authenticity is also good for them.
Mm.
It's if I'm authentically sharing that I'm worthy to have my experience, then I'm authentically sharing that your authentic experience is also worthy. And so the reason why there could be conflict in that week is when we're not fully walking with the medicine of that truth.
Mhm.
If we're somehow still thinking that they're worthy, but we're not. That's a very, like, often a Libra wound is something like, well, I'll sacrifice my side of the equation to balance this out so that we have harmony.
Mhm.
Aries is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
The way that I balance this equation is by really honoring where I stand in this equation and
Mhm.
knowing that when I stand here, it may discomfort the other side of the equation, but ultimately creating authentic balance is with putting myself first, which sounds a little egoic. It sounds a little selfish. These words get thrown around often. And I think that's part of the medicine that we get to walk with. Is it selfish to honor what we authentically feel and need? Is it
Mhm.
selfish to honor what we actually have the energy for and what our actual truth is? And so when you're talking about ambitions, that also falls into that. If my ambition is to have a completely regulated nervous system where I don't have to mask anything I feel, then I can find the words to communicate that. And I'll live in a world where I no longer mask anything. I am. So that's just a small example, but it'll be on whatever scale, in whatever location of our life that we have the Aries energy.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. I, I think that that's one of those things too that we're seeing is, and from a human design standpoint as well. Like when I'm just pulling up, looking at another aspect of the chart, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, just to. Oh, I do want to. Before I jump ahead, I want to, you know, again, the entire month we have this sort of phenomenon of everything sort of like just kind of tracking together for so long. Um, but we are closing out. We've had Saturn in the 36th gate. Uh, this is an energy, and Neptune has been in the 25th gate. I've been talking about this all, for not all year. Neptune, I've been talking about almost all year, and then the 36th gate for Saturn as well. These themes of compassion and um and real connection to something that we don't lose ourselves, just like what you were saying, we don't lose our own identity in all of it, but we also recognize the value of everybody else's identity, and that we have compassion for people having different experiences than us. And more this year, I know that I think a lot of the difficulty, and I think there's some people think it's the things that have been happening, but I think that there's part of the heaviness has just felt like this has been a heavy year collectively. We've seen a lot of really ugly things probably up close, and then we've seen them just, out in the world. And we're closing that out at the end of the month, or like the 26th. Yeah, the 26th ish. Saturn moves into the 25th gate again. So we have Neptune and Saturn will be on that same track of, and this is that gate that says, the 25th gate says, we are all one. We are all connected. And I think they always move together, 36 into 25. 36 is we all have different experiences. Life is here to be experienced. And the wisdom of this, we're being called. And my question is, where are you with this theme? Because we've been working through, this gate has worked its way through us in multiple placements throughout the entire year. It was it was in our nodes for, several months, and then went into Saturn, and then it was in Jupiter. We had this theme coming through of compassion, of being able to really see other people to say, like, you had that experience. Life is worth experiencing. That's what it is to leap and see if the net appears. And if it doesn't, you've learned. Maybe the net doesn't grow over there. Maybe it won't catch me. But to also see that other people are tripping and falling. And instead of judging and criticizing them for not getting it right, you lend them a hand and you say, I've been there too.
Whew.
And I feel like that is just, we're going to be closing this out. So to me, I feel called to just talk about that theme, because I do think we're being pitted against each other. We are being told that, there's a lot of othering going on. And the 25th gate coming back into Saturn, we're about to learn a lesson about how connected we really are.
I feel like probably if every listener imagines where the one primary area they experienced the othering in their own lives, I can tell you from the way I'm designed, I navigated my first full year of being separated from my daughter's father last year. And so he got to represent the other, and I had many opportunities to blah, witness myself wanting to other him and judge his experience or judge his behaviors or judge. And I loved this person for a really long, like I still love this person. I love him so much. I walked with him for such a long time, and I'm still walking with him. And the lesson that came to a really clear healing was around truly loving him in and understanding that he is really a representation of myself as well, and that when I'm loving him, it's best for our daughter. And when we find common ground, we're not judging each other, it really is best for our daughter. It's best for him, it's best for me. I know that there were really huge global experiences that some of us hooked into to experience that otherness. I just happen to have it in a more personal place.
Yeah.
But I would imagine by the end of this year, well, literally the week between the 18th and the 24th of January, we actually experience all the planets moving over Pluto. And Pluto is in Aquarius in this new place that's drawing a line with vibration. There is no um there's no tolerance in the universal system. There's a line drawn, there's a sentinel that is saying, when you don't hold your sacred vibration, you feel loss. You feel like you're out in the cold. You feel like you're outside of the solar system. Pluto holds the boundary for us in our solar system, in our psychological solar system. And so with Pluto there, Pluto's saying, I'm holding a vibration, and I want you to notice if you're ever not within the bounds of this vibration, because the vibe is moving up. We are moving consciousness up in vibration, which is why a lot of the turmoil we experienced in the world actually has exploded so much, because as we're increasing a vibration, the volume's turned up on all these low vibrational experiences that were in the shadows. And so all of the low vibration is being witnessed, and it's triggering the low vibrational pockets of consciousness within ourselves. So when you look at it, you bring your consciousness to it, then what is your vibration as you observe it in yourself? So the 18th through the 24th, we have all the planets kind of parading over this spot, asking each individual, when you look at these things and the parts of you that have been hidden or subterranean are suddenly surfaced, how do you hold that vibration within yourself? What's your judgment of yourself and the other? And so I expect that that question will be very apparently answered in our nervous system, in our lives, in the world stage. And we have an opportunity to make that choice ourselves.
Okay. So everything you just said kind of beautifully, and we tend to do this to each other too, where it's like that segued perfectly into exactly what I was going to talk about next. So the human design new year, there's so many new years. There's the actual, our calendar new year. We talk about the lunar new year on February 17th. Well, the human design new year is on January 22nd. that is when the sun goes into gate 41. And gate 41 is the gate of, it's called the gate of decrease, contraction, which is such a funny name for it because really what it's about is hope. But I think it's almost like, you know, it's a contraction before like an explosion into just the first thing. It's in DNA, it's known as the start codon. It's the one that says to the DNA, let's go. There are stop codons and there's one start codon, and this is it. So this is kind of the beginning of the whole experience. So that's why it's the Human Design New Year, is when this gate comes into, the sun comes into this gate in the first line. Well, but given where we are, Mercury and Venus are also in this gate at the exact same time on the 21st to the 22nd. And this happens, they are in that same lockstep pattern just for like those 2 days, the 22nd and the 23rd. But that energy of like starting something, of going, of, initiation, so to speak. But so with that being the Human Design New Year, what we do, we can look at kind of the theme for every year. There's a human design kind of theme for the year, collective lesson, so to speak, of what we're going to be experiencing. And this year it's about our direction as a people. It's the nodes that are kind of telling our story from a human design perspective. And this is the 40th gate and the 37th gate, that channel of community. And I think that that's interesting because this is part of the, the 2027 change. This is part of that background frequency that's going away in 2027. What we talk about, that if we're not learning how to take care of each other now, and how we are important to each other, and that maybe our systems and our infrastructure and ways of doing things as a collective have to change and evolve, it doesn't mean that there's no place for them anymore. That there's no place for togetherness, for looking out for each other, for taking care of others, do unto others as they will do unto you, taking care of somebody else and lending them a hand or lending them a hug based on what they need, and expecting nothing in return, but also knowing that if you needed it, they would give it too. That, people talk about this going away in 2027, and there won't be any togetherness anymore. We won't have this same need for it. We'll see all of these systems and infrastructures crumbling. I think they're going to change. I think they're going to shift. And I think the trap is to think that, it's all or nothing, babe. And I think that this year it's interesting to me that we're kicking off where that's going to be sort of that New Year theme that's set for us, is it's our last year of it. And it's going to be the thing that's sort of defining our lesson for this year, is understanding this fundamental connection that we have together, this fundamental need for each other, and to not just say, and I see it a lot in these circles, in the human design circles, in the astrology circles. It's like, where governments are going to go away, banking's going to go away. That don't feed into that narrative of that because something shifts, that it can no longer exist just because it won't be in its same form. That this theme can no longer exist. These are human themes. And I still think that and again, it's like, if we tie it with the other things that we were just talking about a few minutes ago, with compassion, with recognizing that we are all connected, how can we say that we shouldn't be taking care of each other, and that maybe it can look different? And if you're disenchanted with the way that things are, maybe you do something about it. That I think there's a space for something new in these places, rather than thinking that, well, this will just go away. And I think that that's almost sort of like, we're seeing that in this industry a lot, just in the coaching industry and the online industry, people talking about, that the landscape is changing, that there are no buyers. We hear these things all the time, but for some reason, whenever it's happening to us and it feels hard, it feels more true. Like that the doomsday is really here. And, what we've learned, if you've been in this for a while, is that things they shift and they change, and we get to make them what we want them to be. if you really are like 41, that first gate, that start codon, it's a dreamer. It is a gate of daring to dream. The audacity of hope is is really what it's about. And, so can you have that audacity of hope and also be looking at this saying that it doesn't have to be, I can be me, just like you were saying about that Aries to Libra. I won't abandon myself for the sake of you, but I also will honor the individuality and truth of you as well, that both are valid and both are needed. I think there's a lot of these themes that are just sort of echoing throughout these months and certainly throughout the month of January.
Yes. And so many things were triggered that I've collected from conversations I've been having. I recently had a conversation with one of my teachers, and she says she's been in this summit where they're talking about these four different intelligences. And she said that they said there's a cosmic intelligence, there's a natural intelligence, and their conversation was geared around human intelligence and artificial intelligence. And as I was listening to her, I was like, I don't really think it should be called human intelligence and artificial intelligence. What I think it should be called, because I'm that kind of person, we should have cosmic intelligence, natural intelligence, creative intelligence, and reflective intelligence.
Hmm.
And I believe that as we cross over into this new year that you're talking about, um, we are redefining our role in those intelligences. We're redefining where we stand in the axis. Are we in the center where we're honoring the cosmic intelligence, we're honoring the natural intelligence, we're honoring creative intelligence and reflective intelligence?
Hmm.
And which quadrant do we hang out with more? Are
Hmm.
we kind of in the center? Do we favor one side or the other? Um, to be honest, I'm sure we're made up of equal parts of all of it, but are we overvaluing any of it and undervaluing any of it? And so literally this coincides with the very last week of December from my perspective, that we get to define our role in the human, cosmic, natural, reflective team of society, of the world, of our life. And I know it sounds very grandiose to be thinking of like where we stand in these quadrants of these intelligences, but I think that's the power and birthright we have all the time. I mean, every manifestation coach, every human design, like core truth, every astrological mission is to find the center where all parts are valued and held
Hmm.
as sacred, including all parts of ourselves. And so, yeah.
So I think kind of as you're saying that, the vision I'm getting in my head is almost like what, you know, in human design, the way that we look at there's the personality crystal, the design crystal, these different parts of you, and then there's obviously the cosmos and the whole thing. That the G center, the center of identity, right in the center, which most of us would know is the heart in the Hindu chakra system, but we have the two pieces of it. The G center for human design is said to be the part that binds them all together into what becomes, it's the thing that makes you an individual and takes all of the pieces where we're all part of the same things together. And the way that it comes together is through you, through your heart. That's the part that's how you individuate as a unique human being. And as you were saying that, and as you were talking about it, that, we're all kind of like maybe favoring one of these consciousnesses, or, maybe intrigued by one and playing with one more, that we are the ones, that it's how we sit in the middle that determines our outward expression. And if you think about it, like I'm getting a bit esoteric here, but that you are the expression of your experiences with all of these consciousnesses anyway, that is what you are. You are just a filter for the way that consciousness is expressing itself through you and through your heart and the way that you walk out in the world. whether it's the way that you interact with people or the way that you are teaching or the way that you are showing up. And ultimately, your purpose is lived out by how pure that expression is to what it truly is versus being affected by the outside world so much, maybe. So that was just what was coming through for me. I just kept seeing, as you were talking about, I was getting these like 4 points and like
Mhm.
you being in the center and how you're interpreting and filtering all of that intelligence is just coming through us as individuals. We're all experiencing it.
Yeah, and to bring it down to earth for people, since we brought up natal charts
Yeah.
already, and I'm sure everyone's attuned to their human design chart as well. If we look at the part of our chart where Aquarius is, and we
Mm-hmm.
look at the polarity points between Aquarius and Leo, that's going to be the part of our life where we find the power center, the G center,
Mm.
the place where we, because Leo rules the heart, and Aquarius essentially rules how our heart integrates all the parts. It weaves in with the entire like matrix of everything. And so when all these planets in these last couple of weeks of January move into Aquarius, we're going to look at the Aquarius part of our chart. For instance, I have that in my second house.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to look at how it fruits, how we come to our fruiting heart center in the Leo part of our chart. And that rules, that's my eighth house of intimacy and transformation. So for anyone who's looking at this in their own chart, what does that house mean for you? How is the energy showing up? How is it increasing in frequency? Like did I talk to you about how I transformed my wealth over the last year? I moved from like having like $45,000 in
Yeah.
debt at the beginning of the year all the way to like I'm going to be paying my truck off in a couple of months and I will have zero debt. That is a second house situation. So the
Yeah.
vibration of my finances has gone through a transformation. And when the finances go through a transformation and my needs and my resources, it ultimately gives me presence in my heart through intimate relationship. My
Mm.
intimate relationships will experience that center location, which means I can have deeper intimate relationships with everyone, with my clients, with life, with my loved ones, lover, etc. My daughter's father,
Yeah.
everything gets to be stable in the heart and connected in the heart because I've gone through this resource transformation,
Mm.
which how would that be related? But it's a vibration.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, and you mentioned that at the start of the call. You were saying about how you went from 45,000 in debt to, now just your truck payment, which that just I think for everybody listening, like the way that that feels in your nervous system, that sense of like is palpable. That's a
Mhm.
real thing. How you relate to the debt that you have. You
Mhm.
can also have debt and feel fine about it. It's
Yeah.
about how you feel, what your relationship is to it. But you obviously made it a priority this year where you said, this is something that I no longer desire to hold. So I'm going to get rid of it.
I decided I wanted to operate in right relationship with resource.
Mm,
And I wanted to pay attention. I wanted to create different like laws and rules
hmm
with the material world and that stood on tangible things. So I've been operating only cash.
mm,
Everything, all Christmas was cash. Like there's been no credit at all, which is fine. I don't have anything against credit. I just was using it as my laboratory for being
yeah.
in right relationship with resource.
hmm
And so now I have all of this resource. My personal like resource tank is full and I can make decisions from that tank however I wish.
mm,
And I don't have to borrow on future effort or future energy in order to make moves in the now. And that changes the way I'm in the now, the way I'm present in the center of that now, which changes my relationship to my clients and my loved ones. And, I'm not borrowing from a future engagement. So, anyways, the only reason I'm bringing all this up is because we're going to actually see how the Aquarian part of our chart impacts our ability to be in our heart. You
mm,
talked about the heart being the center, the G spot. we're going to notice that the Aquarian part of our world is what actually would pull us into one quadrant or another and out of that heart center. And with Pluto in that place, it's drawing this line
Mm-hmm.
saying, draw your lines with these things, with these ways you are pulled, with these ways you are overvaluing, undervaluing, judging, not a part of, wherever you think that you belong, you don't belong. Those Aquarian things are affecting the G center, are affecting how you sit comfortably in your G center.
So for somebody looking to follow what you just said, they're going to go to their chart. They're going to see where Aquarius sits in their chart, just like they did with Aries earlier. They're going to go find what house is Aquarius in. And they're going
Yes.
to look at that. And then they're going to look at what the opposite is. And that is going to be where the work needs to be done
Well,
or where it will show
it's
up.
so the opposite of Aquarius is Leo.
Yeah.
Leo rules the heart, the G center. The the I call it the present thing that makes life worth living.
Mm,
It's like, so Aquarius things are going to be the things that kind of pull you out of that,
mm,
or make you feel you don't belong, or help you to feel you belong. It's the vibration of belonging. It's the vibration of likeness or not likeness.
mm.
It's and so the Aquarian part of our chart is going to reveal the materials that would pull us out of our heart center.
Okay.
And for me, it had to do with my relationship to resource.
Mm-hmm.
My resources,
Interesting.
the amount of energy I have to be with you intimately, the amount of money I have to spend with you, the amount
Mm,
of like confidence I have in my ability to focus on our relationship and not like my work, for instance, or something like
yeah.
that. So,
Does it matter what house system people use?
my opinion on that is there's there's listen, as a supercharged Virgo, I definitely believe there was like a right or wrong when it came to house systems when I approached this.
Yeah.
Place I've elegantly landed is choose the one that feels best to you and always stick to it.
Okay.
It's it's a divination tool. It's like having a favorite tarot deck. It's like having with anything, choose the one you resonate with most and stick to it. And you'll have an accuracy with your divination and accuracy with the service that you do because you're sticking to one system.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter what system you choose. All systems are fingers pointing at the moon. So choose a finger that you want to study really, really well and know that it's actually pointing at the moon that every single finger is pointing at. Every system points to the same moon. It's just a matter of how well you know the back of your hand.
And by them learning it and choosing, are they just looking at their chart through the different houses and seeing which one feels the most resonant? Is that how they're choosing? Or are they
Yeah,
reading up on it to see how
oh
it's
my gosh.
calculated?
This
Sorry,
can
I'm
get
going off on a tangent, but we've been
that's
talking
okay.
about the houses a lot here. And
Yeah.
I know that if someone goes to run their chart, it's going to ask them whole sign,
Full
Placidus.
sign.
Like
That's
there's,
right. I will tell you, I use the Placidus house system.
mhm.
I've recently, so it's a whole wormhole. If you're very new to astrology, um, go ahead and just use whole house. It gets more and more specific to you the more detailed you get into it. But
Yeah.
if you're just going for broad strokes, start with whole house and
I
you
learned
can,
on whole sign. That was
yeah.
what I was taught.
Mhm.
And but I know my readings with you are Placidus. And so that kind of got me to explore.
Mhm.
And yeah, so
The
it's
closer you get to specific and perfect, the more range that that gives you. There's so much like I'm in a wormhole now where I'm looking at draconian charts versus tropical charts. Like
yeah.
it never stops. It will never stop. So just
Yeah.
choose the one you want to lean on if this is what your jam is. And when it starts to feel deeper, you'll go deeper and you'll fine tune it even more. And you'll get into the nitty gritty of the micro millimeters of detail. And that's the fun part if you're into that kind of thing.
There's always something to kind of like dig into. And I think that I you know, obviously we love this. This is sort of our
Yeah.
world. But is there anything else you wanted to mention to everybody before we wrap the January episode? By the way, you had said the last week of December. You meant January when we were talking a couple
Right.
minutes ago, right? I'm
You're right.
just throwing that in case someone thinks that, oh, did we go back to December? No, she meant the
Oh,
last week of January. I heard what you were saying. I'm like, she's talking about this, but I wanted to call it out. Is there
yes. Yes.
any last words for everybody for January?
The last words are trust that when the vibration hits right, it'll automatically change the way you feel, the way you think, and the way you act. You don't have to force it.
Yeah.
Just trust that there's a vibration that wants to guide us. It's like a compass inside of your nervous system. Follow the compass, and it will lead you exactly to all the things you need to be at for yourself.
Yeah. For me, this is always true, but it's even more true this year that, January is about I think that you learn a lot from like the lessons of the root center because we have a lot of root center energy in all like in so many of the planets we have it showing up that the lesson of the root center is always that creativity, the burst of we've all felt creative energy just show up at one point where it felt so pure and so beautiful and really just felt like we were ignited and initiated into something that was so meant for us. The lesson of the root center is to know that that doesn't happen every day. And when we try to make it happen every day, we actually keep it from happening when it's meant to. That we close off to the miracle. And I think that January is a month of dancing and learning to move with and trust divine timing and moving with the rhythms of the universe. And it's being ready, you know? Being ready means that you weren't busy doing something else that had nothing to do with like there might be a little bit more waiting in January than we think. There's probably going to be bursts of creativity, of productivity, of action. And we might really feel that where they might be very powerful. In fact, I think they will be. But also to take those moments of in between to say that this is the universe giving me a moment to get ready for the next one so that I can be even more ready and more able and in my light when that comes in, when that lightning strikes, because there's going to be these lightning strike moments, I think, throughout the month. And if you're distracted, you won't be ready for them and then you'll miss it. So, and also just don't forget, go back and listen to the wood snake episode that I did in December on, how to close out 2025 properly. Like we're still doing this all through January. We are still closing out the year of the snake until the Lunar New Year on February 17th. So don't forget to keep doing that work of shedding, of releasing, of really coming into relationship with these. What do you have to let go of? That should be a question that everybody's asking themselves throughout the month of January and into, like the beginning of February. I have a workshop coming up on the G Center. It's on the G Center on shifting your identity because there is a new identity that we are always being called to. And the G Center is this beautiful portal into who we are and how we can, there's different ways that we approach identity shifts based on your human design. So I'm doing a workshop all around this. If you would like to get in on it, just DM me the word G Center, all one word, on Instagram. I'm at Nicole Lano Official, or go to NicoleLano.com/G Center and you can register right there. But Christina, do you have anything that you have going on that you want to give to the people?
Yes, have spaces open in January.
Ooh.
If I have a few spaces open in the month of January, I will be stopping this quarter's like around the 20th. So if you'd like to get in before the 20th to get your quarterly reading or be a part of my cohort where I record those quarterly readings every quarter for you, contact me and we'll get you set up. It is my favorite thing that I'm doing right now. It's my honor to be able to offer that.
They are so good, you guys. I highly recommend you checking this out and going in on them. I'm obsessed with my quarterly readings. And she's at lunation.live on Instagram. You can find all of her information there. Is there anywhere else where they should be going, or we're just sending them to the
Let's
IG
just
is the main?
let's just go to Instagram. That's the easiest thing.
So that's how you can do it. Or you can DM me, Christina. If you've forgotten how to get in touch with her, DM me the word Christina and we'll send you all of her stuff. And we've linked it all up there. Thank you so much. Happy New Year, everybody. Wishing you guys a beautiful start to the year. Thank you so much for being here with us. We appreciate you. And remember, in order to have an unshakable business, you must first become an unshakable human. So thanks for letting us help you become unshakable with human design. We will see you next time.